Chapter 1. Haicheng City, President's Office at Veyron Global Group. Marlowe sat on the leather sofa worth millions, struggling to keep his face that had long played the role of weak-willed gold in place with just right poverty and grief. Sitting opposite to him, his wife of 3 years' marriage, the president of Veyron Global Group, Celeste. Celeste remained as cold as frost, her slender fingers holding a Parker gold pen. On the table lay a divorce agreement that Marlowe had been waiting for 3 years, as well as a waiver of property waiver. Marlowe, the 3-year term is up. Sign, and you can walk away with $3 million in cash. We'll have nothing to do with each other. Celeste's voice was devoid of any warmth. Marlowe took a deep Marlowe, his eyes slightly red, trembling as he took the pen. But in his mind, however, a wild donkey was frantically having a rave. Ha 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 ha. 3 years. A full 3 full years. I've been fetching you every day, serving you tea, washing your feet, cooking your cooking, putting up with all your dirty looks. Finally, this day has come. Sign it. Celeste, you sign it now. You have idea, that childhood sweetheart of yours, Tyler, has already hired foreign mercenaries, ready to kidnap and whack you at the cruise dinner next week. As soon as we divorce today, and you get whacked next week, you won't get a single cent of my property. Not only that, but 6 months ago, I secretly used your name to take out a huge accidental death insurance policy, and I listed myself as the beneficiary. That's a full $1 billion. Once I get my hands on that billion in insurance money, I'm flying straight to a private island and keeping 10, not 10, but 20 young models. I'll be popping on a yacht every day. Who's going to wait on you, this poker-faced female CEO? Just sign already, what are stalling for? Marlowe was having a great time venting inside, but his face was a tearful, devoted look. Celeste. I really don't want to leave you. These 3 years my heart has only ever been for you. Clatter. The gold pen in Celeste's hand, any warning, dropped to the table. Her usually stoic and flawless face unfazed expression was now as if Mount Tai had collapsed, was now pale as paper. She intently stared at Marlowe, her beautiful eyes filled with shock, absurdity, and disbelief. Just now, what was that sound? Without any movement of the lips, where did the arrogant, sleazy, even slightly gloating roar come from? Marlowe. Kidnapping and killing for money. Huge insurance. 20 young models. Celeste instinctively glanced around. The office was empty except for the 2 of them. Marlowe, however, was all docile, as if resigned to his fate. Celeste, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Marlowe raised his head and asked. F***K, why is this chick spacing out? Don't tell me she's backing out. Sign it already. My hot models are getting impatient waiting on the beach. Celeste's body jolted violently. This time she heard it clearly. That voice was Marlowe's, with an extremely rapid-fire tirade speed exploding directly in the depths of her mind. Celeste stared at her. What were you just thinking in your mind? Marlowe was taken aback, a flicker of panic flashing in his eyes, but quickly concealed by flawless acting skills. Celeste, what are you talking about? I just feel, these 3 years have passed too quickly, and I can't bear to part with you. How did she suddenly ask that? Could it be she found out I secretly bought insurance secretly? No way, that's impossible. It's offshore insurance and I covered. My plan is flawless. This expressionless woman isn't going through early menopause and having auditory hallucinations, right? Celeste gritted her silver teeth. Hallucinations? Flawless? This man who had groveled before her for 3 years was harboring such a huge hidden scheme. He was actually waiting for her so he could inherit $1 billion to support young models. A surge of betrayal and absurdity washed over her. Celeste let out a cold smile, then suddenly reached out and snatched the pen from Marlowe's hand. Rip. Rip. Under Marlowe's bewildered gaze, Celeste tore the divorce agreement into shreds and threw them to the ground. Not divorcing. Celeste leaned back coldly into her chair. Marlowe was completely dumbfounded. What? What's going on? How can you just decide not to divorce all of a sudden? That's not supposed. Marlo, I think you've done a good job taking care of me these past 3 years. I'm ready to renew this marriage contract. Celeste suppressed the towering waves inside her as she shot him a teasing him. She studied him with a gleam in her eyes. Since she could hear this bastard's thoughts, she wanted to see exactly what waves this man, whose head was full of huge insurance payout and young models, could stir up. Most was the mention of kidnapping and killing in his thoughts just. Marlo pulled a long face, flopping onto the sofa, feeling that he was already wet, feeling like a dead fish's belly. He felt his $1 billion and the sexy models rapidly drifting away from him. Chapter 2. In the evening, in the villa. Celeste's aloof and unusual behavior did not fade away, on the contrary, it grew even stronger. Sitting at the dining table, aside from Celeste, was Celeste's father, Kenneth, the former chairman of Veyron Global Group. Marlo, as usual, humbly placed a bowl of carefully simmered chicken soup in front of Celeste. Celeste, you've worked hard. I specially prepared this black chicken soup that's been simmering for 3 hours for you. Drink while it's still hot. Drink up, drink up, drink up. Have some more. Some more. I didn't poison it, but I made sure to add 3 extra scoops of salt went in there. Hope it chokes you, you emotionless-faced woman. That's for tearing up my contract, and for sabotaging my supermodel master plan. Celeste paused mid-reached for the bowl. 3 extra scoops of salt. Kenneth, seated nearby, frowned at Marlo. Chided asterisk, how many times have I told you? Celeste's stomach hasn't been well recently star. Just cut it out with the greasy food. A grown man always stuck around kitchen, what a wasted potential. Marlo immediately shrank his neck, nervously Dad's right. That was my oversight that I'll make sure next time. You old fool, doddering fool, good-for-nothing fool, what the hell do you know? If it weren't for the fact that you're about to be swindled bankrupt and driven to throw yourself off a building by that rat venom Tyler's contract, I wouldn't even boil you a glass of water. And you dare to yell at me? When your precious daughter disappears next week, you won't have the strength to cry. Boom, boom. Suddenly, Kenneth's mind suddenly exploded with that piece of dialogue, and the spoon in his hand dropped to the ground with a clatter. He looked up at the marble, he looked up in shock at Marlo. What was that sound? Was Marlo speaking? No, Marlo's lips hadn't moved at all. And what toxic contract? What jumping off a building? Kenneth and Celeste exchanged a glance, both seeing utter horror in each other's eyes. They had both heard voice at the same time. To verify her suspicion, Celeste took a deep breath, picked up bowl of chicken soup, and directly took a huge gulp despite the churning in her stomach. Immediately, a burst of rich saltiness and umami exploded in her mouth. Wait, it wasn't, but was incredibly savory. Those extra 3 spoons of salt seemed to have by some wonderful timing perfectly. Celeste suddenly spoke up, Marlo. This soup you've made is excellent. From today onwards, I'm putting you in charge of all my meals. Marlo was dumbfounded, what the hell? Not even overwhelmed, tongue broken. Or could she actually be into heavy on the hell, should have put in half a can of salt, all my meals. I'm a full-time. Kenneth, too, was also trembling as he wiped the cold sweat from his. He stared intensely at Marlo, trying to see any clue from that pathetic face. This son-in-law not some talent at all, but a hidden master. Was that poisonous contract he just muttered in his mind? Just then, the butler walked quickly. Miss Tyler from Arden Investment Group's here, saying an extremely important business contract personally present to you. Marlo sat off to the side, his eyelid violently twitching. Here it comes. That death chaser Tyler is coming. The poison contract that supposedly attends of old city renovation but is actually a capital chain trap is finally about to make its entrance. You old fool. The moment you sign it, Veyron Global Group will be shorted within 3 months. Just wait your turn for the rooftop. Hearing this inner monologue, Kenneth and Celeste both instantly. Tyler, the toxic $100 billion trap. Chapter 3. After a moment, Tyler, impeccably dressed and a smile, stepped into the living room. Good evening, Uncle, Celeste. Tyler greeted politely, casting a contemptuous glance at Marlowe, who stood in the corner. Marlowe quickly put on an ingratiating smile and bowed slightly. "Good evening, Mr. Tyler, I'll go fetch you some tea." "Tea? More like foot bath water." "Tyler, I'd say." "Tyler, the louder you laugh now, the harsher you'll be when you tear Celeste apart on the cruise next week." TSK, Celeste really must be blind, passing up a perfect catch like me for a slick hypocrite like you." At that, Celeste couldn't help but twitch violently. A great catch? One who secretly plots to inherit her family fortune and keep 20 models on the side. Still, the news that Tyler intended to have her killed sent ice-cold shock through her. "Tyler, coming so late, there must be something urgent, something important?" Kenneth struggled to control his emotions, his voice trembling slightly. Tyler smiled, taking a beautifully crafted contract from his briefcase, and handed it over. "Uncle, this is the joint development contract for the joint development of that prime land south of the city, which our Arden Investment Group secured. As long as your Veyron Global Group invests $3 billion, you'll get 40% of the shares, and profits will at least double your profits in 3 years. I brought it to you right away because of my connection with Celeste." Kenneth accepted the contract, looking over the generous terms, felt a wavering in his heart. The deal was too tempting, seeming like Arden Investment Group was the one making concessions. Marlowe, sitting nearby, appeared to be wiping the table but was internally going wild. "Sign it. Sign it. Sign it. Hurry and sign it." Clause 32 Section 3 hides a clause about attribution of geological pollution liability. That land used to abandoned chemical plant, heavily contaminated with heavy metals, and it's undevelopable. Whoever signs it end up bearing billions in environmental fines and costs and penalties. Once Kenneth puts pen to paper, Veyron Global Group will be exposed for its scandalous secrets tomorrow, the stock price will hit the daily limit, and $3 billion will vanish into thin air in an instant. Then Veyron Global Group goes bankrupt, Celeste ends up on the streets, I'll just be there with the insurance payout to play the devoted ex-husband role. I'm a genius. Kenneth's cold sweat drenched his entire back in an instant. Article 32, Paragraph 3. Geological contamination from chemical plant geological pollution. He quickly flipped open the contract and found that page. Sure enough, buried amid a dense of jargon, there was a seemingly insignificant clause that read, "If force majeure leads to geological changes, the liability shall be entirely borne by the investing party," so inconspicuous it almost went unnoticed. If it weren't for Marlowe's spoilers, Veyron Global Group's legal team would never have uncovered this trap in such a short time. Bang! Kenneth slammed contract onto the table and stood up, his face ashen. Tyler was startled. "Uncle, what's matter?" Kenneth pointed at the door, seething with rage. "Get out. Take your poisonous contract and get out of my house. From now on, Veyron Global Group and Arden Investment Group are severing all cooperation." Tyler was completely baffled. He thought he had made the contract flawless, and Kenneth had barely glanced at it. Why did he suddenly turn hostile? "Uncle, is there some kind of misunderstanding?" Celeste also stood up, her gaze sharp as a knife. "Get out. Tyler, drop the act. Our families too. Our good for someone like you." Tyler's face turned pale and went pale, and in the end, he could only grit his teeth, glare at Marlowe venomously, and leave awkwardly with the contract. In his view, it must be Marlowe, this useless fool, whispering something in Kenneth's ear. The hall fell silent. Marlowe stood frozen in place, still holding the rag in his hand. Wait, what just happened? The plot has completely gone off the other way. In the original book, Kenneth happily signed the contract, and then Veyron Global Group began to decline. How did Kenneth suddenly turn into a great detective and see right through the toxic clauses at a glance? Could it be that, bold man Kenneth has been a secret business genius all along? Damn it, what about my $1 billion? If Veyron Global Group doesn't go bankrupt, how is supposed to attend Tyler's cruise banquet? If doesn't attend banquet, how get kidnapped? If she gets kidnapped, how I can't claim insurance? Kenneth and Celeste slowly turned around, their complex eyes both falling at the same time. Marlowe felt creeped out by the intense stares and managed to force an innocent smile. "Dad, Celeste, why are you looking at me like that?" Kenneth took a deep breath, thought, this kid is truly a god in our family. Chapter 4. The next morning, as soon as Marlowe came downstairs, he saw a black card and a share transfer agreement laid out on the living room table. Kenneth sat on the sofa, looking at him with a smile that was so warm it gave him goosebumps. "Marlowe, awake, Marlowe. Come on, sit next to your dad." Kenneth waved. Marlowe sat down nervously. "Dad. These are 5% shares of Veyron Global Group, along with this is an unlimited black card, Black Pelican card, a little gesture from father. Please accept them." Kenneth pushed the items toward Marlowe. Marlowe has completely gone crazy. Shares? A black card? Nothing good comes from an uninvited favor. This old fox must have been provoked by Tyler last night, and now he's lost his mind. Or could it be a trap set by that expressionless woman Celeste? She's using the black card to tempt me, then accusing me of theft or illegal possession of property, leaving with nothing to me. Yes. That must be it. Women's hearts are as deep as the ocean floor. Celeste wants to trick me into giving up $1 billion insurance payout with such low tactics. Not a chance. Am I the kind of person who would do that? What I want is the billion and island models. Marlowe straightened his face, pushing away the black card and shares with a look of righteousness and grievance. Dad! What do you take me? I married Celeste because I love her, not for your family's money. I can't accept these things. As long as I can be by Celeste's side every day, I'll be more than satisfied. Looking at Marlowe's face, which was written all over with the phrase, "Money is like dirt," and then hearing the roar in his heart about $1 billion and young models, Kenneth felt an extremely subtle emotion. This guy, clearly greedy and pretentious guy, yet he puts on an act of saintly aloofness in public. Ironically, this, however, perfectly demonstrates Marlowe's noble integrity. He is, in this manner, subtly refusing to get involved in the power struggles over Veyron Global Group, and might even be hinting that his true intent is to protect Celeste. Good child, it was my narrow-mindedness. Kenneth patted Marlowe on the shoulder with emotion. In this family, if anyone dares to bully you, I won't stand for it. Phew, luckily I was on my side, almost fell for that old man's seduction. Wait a minute, why is this old man looking at me with such an unsettling look? Like I'm some priceless treasure. Could he have some special fetish that's been dormant until his senior years? Better stay from. Kenneth's face instantly stiffened. Just then, Celeste came downstairs dressed in sharp business attire. She glanced at Marlowe and said indifferently, "Marlowe, come with me to the company with me today. There's a problem with the source code for a core project in a core project over at the tech department. The entire system has shut down, entire system down, costing us millions every hour." Marlowe was taken aback. Go to the tech department. System architecture division system crash. Oh, I remember now, in the original work, this was the work of rival to Veyron Global Group. Bribed Veyron Global Group manager, planted logic bomb into code. This kind of elementary mistake, just delete overflow function at line 7th, line overflow function redirect base pointer and solve. But what would I know about code? Useless ways to eat soft rice. Role will be mascot there. With that, lucky, you's going to lose money, maybe go bankrupt, so that can go earlier to go on cruise to relax CPN. A flicker of sharp light streaked across Celeste's eyes. Line overflow function redirect base pointer. Unders the heels headed out the door first. M screwed up quickly followed behind. An hour later, at the system division of Group 1 of sharpest hacker programmers were sweating profusely. Chrysler walked in with a cold face, directly pushed aside pull-out to show code line 17 and line. The technical officer was stunned. Boss, line the technical officer technical M77 is just average loop. M7 is NPN. Shut up. Delete the overflow function and redirect the function, and redirect the underlying pointer. Celeste's path. Celeste's voice left no room for doubt. The technical officer, wiping his cold sweat from his forehead, does as instructed. 3 seconds later, the system errors, which had covered the screen entirely in red, instantly all turn green. The entire corporation's servers are fully reinstated to perfect operation. Holy crap. A miracle. President, you're a genius. Cheers erupted from the tech department. Marlowe, standing behind, widened his eyes. What? Is this expression? Is this poker-faced girl also a time traveler? How does she know how to fix it? Where's destroying the dignity of me, the spoiler protagonist? Celeste turned around and smiled at Marlowe, his smile filled with provocation and amusement. Chapter 5. Friday, at the dinner table, there was an additional person. Celeste's younger sister, Chloe. Chloe is a typical rebellious girl with typical rebellious nature, who has just returned from studying abroad. As soon as she entered the house, she gave Marlowe a big eye roll. Sis, why do you still take this minion with you? It's so embarrassing. Marlowe smiled as usual and proactively pulled out the chair for Chloe. Chloe's back, have a seat. You little girl, barely even grown and already typing away. Right now you think I'm embarrassing, but in half an hour, you'll be crying and calling me dad. In the original story, so-called returned elite boyfriend blah is actually an international. He's taking you to a underground party tonight, but it's really a scam. He's prepared spiked red wine for you, planning to take your nude photos and blackmail you for 50 million cash. TSK poor naive girl, after tonight, you'll become the lead actress in Ed straight lead actress. Smack. The bowl Chloe had just picked up fell straight to the ground. Her little face instantly turned pale as she stared at Marlowe in terror. What was that sound just now? Blake is a con artist. There's drugs at tonight's party tonight. And they're going to take photos for blackmail demanding 50 million. Even scarier, why is that voice coming from direction of that useless? Chloe instinctively looked at her sister Celeste and her father, Celeste and Kenneth. To her surprise, she found them both looking at her with a complex expression that seemed to her seeing and experiencing this. Chloe, what's wrong? Marlowe asked with concern. Are all the tableware defective? Why are they falling one after another? Or is Parkinson's disease hereditary? It's hereditary. Then I need to stay away from Celeste, in case she passes it on to my future young models. Both Celeste and Kenneth's faces darkened. Parkinson's. Your entire family has Parkinson's. Chloe was sobbed, tears threatening to tear up. Hello. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Exactly the same as the premonition in Marlowe's mind. Sis. Dad. Chloe said with a mournful face full of distress, looking helplessly at her family. Celeste snorted coldly and stood up. Chloe, I'll go with you tonight. Marlowe, you drive. Marlowe inwardly sighed. What a mess. I just want to be a carefree and easy slacker, how come I keep getting dragged into being a driver? But fine, I'll go watch the show. Seeing a scammer get caught with my own eyes is not bad entertainment. Half an hour later, inside a luxurious private room of the night club. Blake, holding a glass of red wine, gallantly handed it to Chloe. Chloe, come on, have a drink to celebrate your return to the country. Chloe was so scared she hid behind Celeste. Celeste sneered, directly slapped the wine glass away, splashing red wine splashing across Blake's face. Blake, an international scammer, has 3 fake identities, and is wanted by the police. You think your cheap tricks can fool me? Celeste clapped her hands, and 4 burly bodyguards rushed in from outside, pinning Blake to the ground. Celeste. It's a misunderstanding. Blake screamed. Blake. The bodyguard pulled a miniature camera and a bag of white powder out of his pocket. He was caught red-handed. Chloe was terrified and threw herself into Celeste's arms, sobbing, Sis. If it weren't for you, my life would been. Celeste patted her sister's back, but her eyes were incredibly as she looked over at Marlowe, standing at the door of the booth, completely dumbfounded. Marlowe was utterly flabbergasted. What happened? Is Celeste on some kind of omniscient mode? How did she find out everything about Blake's background? My story's not just off track, it's taking off completely. At this rate, can Tyler's kidnapping plan still going to be? Chloe lifted her head from her sister's embrace, sobbing as she looked up at Marlowe. Her eyes no longer held the usual disdain but instead were filled with boundless awe and admiration. This brother-in-law was actually the guardian secretly protecting their entire family. He deliberately acted useless just to guide them with his inner voice at critical moments. Brother-in-law, how great! Chapter 6. After experiencing several consecutive, prophetic predictions, their attitude toward Marlowe shifted 180 degrees shift. At home, Kenneth would voluntarily pour tea for Marlowe. Chloe would call out, brother-in-law, all day long clinging to him and even took the initiative to wash his clothes. As Celeste, her behavior towards him grew increasingly peculiar. Late that night, Marlowe was lying on the living room playing on his phone on folding bed. The bedroom door suddenly opened, walked out in a silk slip dress, her slender shimmering in the moonlight. Marlowe swallowed, then quickly sat up. Celeste, why aren't you asleep yet asleep? Are you thirsty? Let me get you some water for you. Demon. Absolutely a demon. Dressed like that way in the middle of the night, you're either trying to seduce me, or you want a freeloading work from me. Celeste, I warn you're a man with principles, and warning you I'm not, sell my body until I get billion. Don't think just because are the pretty you can do anything you would ever want. Every single of my swims one of my modeling army has a body just as good as. Don't love yours, it's me no use, I just want to be a quiet insurance fraud jerk. Celeste walked up to him and, upon hearing this inner monologue, was so furious she nearly lost her icy facade. You jerk. I'm absolutely stunning, and in your eyes, I'm still not as good as those assembly line starlets. Marlowe. Celeste simply sat down by the folding bed, a faint fragrance wafting over. She gazed at him quietly, her eyes filled with melancholy. Do you think there's really only a contract between us? If I encounter danger at the cruise ship gala next week, would you save me? Marlowe's heart skipped a beat. Holy shit. How did she suddenly bring up the cruise dinner and danger? Could she have precognition? That can't know, could it be that idiot Tyler accidentally let something slip? Save you? Sis, if you don't die, how am I supposed to get those billion? When the time comes to it, you need to be good and dead, don't try to save me money. But still have to keep up appearances. Marlowe held Celeste's hand affectionately, his eyes glistening. Celeste, what nonsense are you talking about? You are my wife. If there's any danger, I'm willing to protect you. Even I have to take a bullet or lose my life to save you, I would do it without hesitation. Listening to his earth-shattering vows spoken aloud, and comparing his inner thought, you must die a good and thorough death, Celeste almost laughed in anger. What a lying bastard. Yet, inexplicably, looking at Marlowe's face, clearly scared face fervently, Celeste felt stirring in her heart. Although this man is selfish and sleazy with his words, it is undeniable that precisely because of him, they have been saved from danger time and time again. Without him, their father would have gone bankrupt and jumped off a building, their sister would have had her reputation ruined, and she would have already fallen into Tyler's trap. Celeste slowly leaned in close to him, her breath fragrant as orchid. Marlowe, you said that. At next week's cruise banquet, you must stay by my side the entire time. If I lose even a single strand of hair haunt you beyond the grave. So be it. I'll be there in person to see you draw your last breath and I'll give those thugs some guidance on how to go through the claims process. Celeste took a deep breath, she tried to tell herself to hold a grudge against him manically. The next week's cruise will be the final battle. I would like to see what you. Chapter 7. On Friday evening, the largest royal cruise ship in Haicheng City, the Queen Mary, slowly departed from the port. This evening, the entire elite of Haicheng City had gathered. Tyler stood on the deck, watching Celeste approach, and Marlowe trailing closely behind. A flicker of barely perceptible ruthlessness flashed in Tyler's eyes. Celeste, you've finally arrived. Ty smiled and stepped forward to greet he. Celeste had averted her gaze, merely nodding slightly. Marlowe, on the naive bumpkin, looked around, but inside his mind, he had already entered a combat-ready state. Here it comes. The climax of the original story. Tyler has arrived. Tyler ambushing with 12 foreign mercenaries in the bottom cargo hold of the cruise ship, all armed with everyone armed with AKs. When the cruise ship reaches international waters later, the banquet hall power will shut down promptly at 9 p.m. Tyler will pretend to take Celeste out to the deck for some air, and the mercenaries will carry out the kidnapping. In the original story, Celeste is accidentally pushed overboard by Tyler during her resistance and drowns. It's 8:45, and there's only 15 minutes left. I need to find a safe place to hide first, like the third stall in a public restroom. Wait until the gunshots are over, then I'll come out pretending to cry in grief. Perfect. Hearing this precise thoughts, Celeste squinted slightly. Power outage at 9, lower cargo hold, 12 mercenaries. Quite a Tyler, actually wanting her dead. Celeste suddenly turned around, pulled out a pre-prepared property gift agreement from her bag, and shoved it into Marlowe's hands. Marlowe, this is a transfer of 30% of Veyron Global Group's shares, worth $5 billion. As long as you stick with me tonight without leaving my side, protect me through this agreement will take effect immediately after we get through this banquet. Celeste locked eyes with him. Marlowe's eyes nearly popped out of his head. $5 billion? Holy crap. Paying me $5 billion? Celeste, are you crazy or am I crazy? Wait, something's off. This woman is throwing money at me all of a sudden. Has she already sensed the danger and wants to use this $5 billion to buy my life, use me as a human shield? Am I the kind of person who would sell my life for $5 billion? Hold on, $5 billion, isn't that 5 times more than that $1 billion insurance payout? And the insurance still has to go through approvals and procedures, shares are ready, shares are right now. Damn it, man, birds die for food, people die for wealth, fortune favors the bold. I say. What's a few mercenaries? In the original story, they were just after money. If I play my cards right I can pocket that $50 billion and keep my skin whole, isn't that perfect? Marlowe grit his jaw, face a look of feigned loyalty. Celestier you. To protect you, I in for you. MBSP, scraw his. Ceased watched him eye shining with greed and shook her head in resign. This bastard won't move unless sees the money shows, but, as long as she can keep him close, she enough. So suddenly turned to Tyler disquiet beside her and sneered. Tyler's almost here soon. Tyler forced a smile. Alright, please. Somehow, he couldn't shake the feeling that Celeste's gaze had already seen through everything. Through everything. Chapter 8. Bang! At exactly 9 o'clock, just as Marlowe had predicted in his mind, the darkness by soundless thoughts, the entire Queen Mary was plunged into utter darkness. The banquet hall immediately erupted into panic and screams. Celeste! Don't be afraid, follow me. Tyler's voice rang out in the voice rang out darkness as he tried to reach for Celeste's wrist. However, Celeste was already had a plan. With a swift movement of her body, she directly behind Marlowe. At this time, Marlowe was shrinking his neck, internally complaining wildly. The power is out. It's cut off. The armed robbers are coming up. Tyler, you bastard, my $5 billion is behind me. If you dare to touch a single hair on her, I'll break your third leg. Bang! 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 The abrupt gunfire exploded in the darkness, followed by the sound of a hatch being violently forced open. Several masked, armed thugs rushed in with guns raised, shouting arrogantly, "Nobody move. Make a move and you're dead." In the banquet hall, everyone ducked down and covered their heads. By the dim emergency light, a flicker of malice flashed across Tyler's eyes. He exchanged a sinister glance with the armed robbers, then suddenly reached out and shoved Celeste toward them. Drop dead. Tyler growled. As long as Celeste was dead, he could seamlessly swallow up Veyron Global Group. Celeste hadn't expected Tyler to make such a sudden move. Her foot slipped, losing her balance, she stumbled straight toward a gunman who was about to fire. Instinctively raised his muzzle, the barrel at Celeste's chest. Holy shit. Tyler, you animal. Marlowe cursed in his percent. My massive shares. If you kill her, shares Veyron Global Group turn into worthless paper. Did I waste my time being a driver today? At this critical moment, Marlowe's body reacted before his mind could make a rational judgment. Without time to think, he suddenly pushed off the ground and lunged at Celeste like a starving tiger pouncing on its prey. Celeste, watch out! Marlowe shouted. He lunged and pinned Celeste down beside him, using his own body to firmly shield her from the armed thug. The piercing gunshot reverberated in Marlowe's ears, causing his pain. A violent impact struck his back, sending excruciating pain shooting through his entire body. His vision went black as he completely lost consciousness. The moment he closed his eyes, Marlowe faintly heard countless sirens wailing offshore, along with Celeste's heart-wrenching sobbing cry, Marlowe. Damn, took a huge loss. My model's billion, was last thought that lingered Marlowe's mind before losing consciousness. Chapter 9. Hospital, ICU. The pungent scent of disinfectant gradually Marlowe's eyes. Outside, bright shone the window dazzlingly casting him. Hiss, it hurts, it hurts. As soon as Marlowe tried to move, a tearing pain shot through his back. You're awake. Don't move. The doctor said you have 3 broken and soft tissue contusions on your back. A weary yet still cool voice sounded from beside the bedside. Marlowe turned his head and saw Celeste sitting by the bed. Originally delicate face now looked somewhat attention, eyes bloodshot, and the bloodshot eyes, obviously had not slept for days. When she saw Marlowe awake, a flicker of uncontrollable joy and emotion in her eyes. Marlowe blinked and suddenly realized, he was alive. Damn. I'm not dead. Amitba, God bless. Weren't those AKs in the hands of the original story real? Why did I only break my ribs? Could it be that the maritime police arrived early, and they were using blank rounds or reduced loads? Whatever, just glad I'm not dead. I'm alive. Marlowe immediately took a deep breath, and swiftly switched into his deeply devoted and regretless actor mode. He looked weakly at Celeste, forcing a gentle smile as his voice rasped, Celeste, are you all right? Seeing you safe. I'm relieved. Don't cry. As long as you're alive, no matter how badly I'm hurt, it's worth it. Watching Marlowe's masterful performance and hearing his inner thought of relief, thank goodness, he's alive, Celeste's tears finally couldn't be held back and streamed down her face. She extended a trembling hand and gently took Marlowe's, choking out, Marlowe, you big fool. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? Why did you took the bullet for me? You're obviously so afraid of death, and said such selfish things. Marlowe was secretly pleased, thinking that Celeste had been completely moved by his affectionate act. Huh, moved, aren't you? Stone-faced woman, this is what I call the triumphant success of a sympathy gambit. I signed off on the dotted line for that 5 billion share transfer, and now the whole city of Haicheng knows I'm the husband hero who nearly died saving you from a bullet. From now on, I'll strut. Let's see who dare call me a kept man. Once this wound heals, I'm cashing that dividend on a seascape villa. Days of keeping young models in luxury are finally coming true. Celeste listened to the cheerful, model marching song in her mind, the gratitude on her face gradually fading, replaced by a peculiar expression that was neither a smile nor a frown. She wiped away her tears, slowly stood up, and looked down at Marlowe, who was lying on the bed. She even thoughtfully adjusted his pillow considerately. Marlowe, you played so well. Marlowe was taken aback, feeling a bit uneasy. Celeste, what are you talking about? My feelings for you are as true as the sun and moon. Oh. As clear as the sun and moon. A playful smile curled at the corner of Celeste's lips. Then how about we talk about the huge personal accident insurance policy you secretly took out for me overseas 6 months ago, with the beneficiary listed as your name, a full 1 billion yuan. Is that also as clear as the sun and moon? Boom. Marlowe felt as if struck by lightning, completely frozen on the hospital bed. Chapter 10. Marlowe's eyes bulged wide, and cold sweat instantly trickled down his forehead. What the hell? How does she know about the offshore insurance? That was done through a virtual IP and overseas account. How is this possible? Are you thinking, wondering how I know since you used a IP and an overseas account? Celeste crossed her arms and casually said aloud. Marlowe's breath completely stopped. He stared at Celeste as if she were a monster. Celeste bent slightly, her delicate face leaning close to Marlowe's, her warm breath brushing against his skin, but her voice carried a dangerously sweet whisper. Also, you added 3 extra spoonfuls of salt to the black chicken soup you made, trying to death me, right? Marlowe's mouth was wide open enough to hold an egg. She even knows this? Does this woman have mind-reading powers? No, that's not scientific. That's absolutely not scientific. There's nothing unscientific in this world, my dear husband. Celeste extended her fair fingers and gently lifted chin, slowly saying, it's not just me, but also, Dad, and you've been planning to sign the divorce papers since last Monday. Every word, every calculation, every complaint, our entire family has heard it all clearly. Boom. Marlowe felt as if 100,000 bombs explode in his mind all at once, shattering his entire worldview into dust. His whole family could hear his thoughts. Then all the times he silently raged over the past week, calling her an expressionless woman, senile old fool, little brat, and the 800 times he muttered about $1 billion and 20 young models. Marlowe let out a desperate wail inside. It's over. I've been completely exposed. This is a true social death. God, strike me down with a bolt of lightning, I don't want to live anymore. Looking at Marlowe's face, which looked utterly lifeless and completely collapsed onto the bed, Celeste finally couldn't hold it in and let out a laugh. In that moment, her radiant beauty seemed to brighten the entire ward. She sat back down by the bed, gently held Marlowe's ice-cold hand, her eyes full of fiery passion and possessiveness. Marlowe, you are a complete bastard, liar and a miser. You got close to me only waiting me to die and inherit money. Marlowe closed his eyes, waiting for the final verdict. But, Celeste shifted his eyes, opening them to a twisting ship in the dark night. There is a self-serving the selfish, cowardly bastard, your body was much more honest though dirty mind. You used your life to shield mine bullet. Celeste inched closer and gently kissed Marlowe gently on his cool lips. So, Marlowe, for the rest of your life, don't escape. Celeste smiled, a glint of triumph in her eyes. Those 5 billion shares are yours. As for the private island and 20 models you've always dreamed of. Celeste's fingers traced lightly across Marlowe's chest, her voice low and dangerous. As long as I'm alive, you're only allowed to have me. You've another thought someone else, I'll have legal with you how to go through the claims route every day. Got, dear husband. Marlowe opened his eyes slowly at the woman before him, this domineering CEO radiating boundless charm, and sighed in resignation. It's over. Completely. My island, my freedom, my army of young models, all turned into this one expressionless-faced woman. But Marlowe felt the unique warmth of Celeste's body temperature coming through his palm, and the real, reassuring pain in his back. Agonizing, he couldn't help but let a bitter smile of happiness appear at the corner of his lips, a smile he hadn't even realized it himself. Actually, having an exclusive model like this, not so bad, I guess. When Celeste heard this arrogant concession, the at her lips finally bloomed fully, and she tightly embraced this contradictory man in her arms. Chapter 11. Marlowe lay in the hospital bed for 2 weeks. Those his was beyond description, it as if they would have revered. Every Kenneth would come carrying thermal lunchbox, his face creased with a smile, this especially bone broth a tonic for you. Takes to you need take good of our future head this family can't let. Lean the enjoying being spoon, the broth his father-in-law while rolling his internally. Old man, that's enough. You're laughing like a baboon. The helm. I only jumped in purely because I didn't want those 5 billion in shares to turn into worthless paper. If it weren't for the money, I wouldn't have lifted a finger. With that imagination of yours, it's a waste you're not writing sci-fi. Kenneth's hand holding the spoon, his hand trembling slightly, but instead of getting angry, his eyes showed even more relief and admiration. Look! Look! What is a true master? He almost lost his life saving my daughter, yet after waking up, he managed to downplay such an incredible achievement with a single phrase, for the shares. He deliberately belittled himself deliberately in order to spare us any psychological burden on us. What a magnanimous character! What profound love! Rebellious girl Chloe burst into the hospital room with great energy and obsequiously handed the grapes to Marlowe's mouth. Brother-in-law. I washed the grapes I washed and peeled just for you. Marlowe took a bite down. Nothing for nothing, nothing from. That little girl used to look at me like I was a pile of dog shit, now she looks at me like I'm a treasure trove. Humph, women's mouths are the devil's tools. If I'm not trying to suck up to you. If I hadn't used my script reading ability to save your ass, you'd still be crying over there bawling your eyes out washing off getting that tattoo. Stop trying to butter me up. The moment that's all. Once I'm discharged, the moment the dividend shares the bank, the first is to move out of here. Sick of your drama kings and queens performing every day. Chloe heard his thoughts, and her eyes reddened with emotion. My brother-in-law was still making excuses for how rude I treated him badly before. He was clearly using extraordinary script reading ability protecting our entire family while making us think he was just a selfish, script freak just so we wouldn't feel burdened. He'd even get out to move out after leaving us no trouble. Brother-in-law, relax, I'll treat you like you're my own brother. If anyone dares to you out, I'll be the first to fight them with all I got. Chloe wept, pat her chest, sobbing as she made the promise. Just then, the hospital door swung open. Celeste walked in clicks of her high heels. She wore a sharp white suit today, exuding competence and intelligence. Kenneth and Chloe exchanged a glance and very tactfully stood up. Well, there's still have things at the company, I'm heading back. Kenneth patted Marlowe's shoulder. Brother-in-law, I'll come see you again this afternoon. Chloe stuck out her tongue and followed her father out of the ward. In the room, there were suddenly only Marlowe and Celeste left. Chapter 12. Celeste walked over to the bed, sat down, and casually took over the task of peeling grapes for Marlowe. Marlowe watched her warily. Ever since this woman revealed the secret that the whole family can read minds, Marlowe's mind, he had completely let himself go in front of her. After all, when you've already lost their underwear, why bother pretending to be a pathetic loser? The legal procedures for the share transfer have all been completed. Celeste placed a document stamped with an official seal on the cabinet and said calmly, nonchalantly, you Veyron Global Group's rightful second-largest shareholder. Without fail, LL receive at least $500 million in cash dividends. Marlowe's eyes instantly lit up like two high-voltage light bulbs. Holy crap. $500 million. I actually got it. Ha 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 ha, I'm finally a chable. Quick, Celeste, give me the card. I want to check out private yacht specs online right now. I'm going to buy the one with an outdoor swimming pool. Celeste rolled her eyes at his ecstatic, eager expression, as if he could barely stop himself from jumping on the spot. She pulled the pelican black card out of her bag and gently slipped it into his hand. Here's the card. But you can buy a yacht, just make sure I'm the only one in the pool. Marlowe curled his lip. TCH, expressionless, he sneered. You wish. Do you think you can keep me leashed once I have money? When I'm discharged, once I'm out of here, the sky's the limit. So what if you can read minds? I'll be thinking about models even if I inwardly, and you can't reach me through the Wi-Fi. Marlowe. Celeste suddenly closed the distance, her beautiful eyes fixed intently on him, her voice low with a hint of lazy hoarseness. Do you think I'm just trying to tie you down with money? Marlowe raised an eyebrow, otherwise? Miss, a forced melon isn't sweeten's not. A forced melonori melon is not sweet, but it quenches thirst. Celeste with a cold humiliated tone, then, her eyes suddenly turned incredibly warm existence carrying a never-to-be-tired an attachment. She leans on the unburdened shoulder of Marlowe Downs, her voice soft voice like wind, these 3 years, I've been tired. Tyler scheming me, my competitor watching me, even the high executives in my company think pulling me. I thought I was surrounded. Until Celeste takes Marlowe's hand, presses it against her face. Until weak, I start hear your voice. You verbally call me face, mentally thinking my insurance money, and plan to young models. But in your repeated criticisms, see truth. You never lied to me, Marlowe. Even when you played the villain, you were so candid. Most importantly, when everyone else was pushing me into hell, you, the only one who cursed at me while shielding me from bullets with your own body. Celeste looked up, tears glistening in her eyes, yet she stared at him with unrivaled authority. So, don't even think about walking away scot-free for the rest of your life. The $5 billion you traded your life to earn have to be spent alongside me. Marlowe was completely stunned. The hospital room fell into silence. He looked at the woman leaning on his shoulder and caught the familiar faint scent from her hair. In this moment, the originally dense, fast-paced rants and calculations in his mind miraculously stopped. A full half-minute passed before a remarkably brief yet exceedingly clear, inner voice, slowly rose in Marlowe's mind. Actually, this poker-faced woman is truly beautiful. But forget it, the island and 20 young models combined probably can't compare to her alone. I'll just accept defeat. Hearing this heartfelt confession, Celeste's body stiffened suddenly. Then, an uncontrollable sweetness and happiness spread across her lips. Marlowe, you said that yourself. Celeste looked up, giving a sly smile. Marlowe rolled his whole face. Well, that depends on how good your complaints are, my dear husband. Sunlight streamed curtains to thick murmur them, locked in each other in embrace. Marlowe's call, Rishi, the from turn no one did. Row, however. No. Let's fill the quick Marlowe had returned deep voice. Fully warmly serene skilled heartfelt equals now novel but she seems require self gently had been perfectly might be sharply. Let's set he journalists, firmly.